In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create this Twitter/X style thumbnail. Now I've created a variation of this before and you can find that on my channel. This is one of those standard thumbnail styles that you see a lot of content creators using today. So I thought, why not teach this to my audience? So without wasting any more of your time, let's get straight into the video. So let's create a new file, 1920 by 1080, keep all the other options the same and click create. So starting off with the background, so as you can see I've added in my gradient. It's a very nice steel grey gradient, and so to add the gradient to your canvas, simply click on adjustment layers and click on gradient like so. And here are the settings. So the darker grey is set to location 0 and the lighter grey is set to location 85. Click OK. Make sure to copy all of the remaining settings on screen, and now we can focus on adding in the subject into this thumbnail. Okay, so here I have added in my subject and I found this image on Freepik and I'll link it in the description down below. So I've simply just cut it out and we are now going to enhance this subject. So this is going to be a two-stage process. The first stage will be using Camera Raw filter just to enhance the subject, and then we'll move on to some dodging and burning just to enhance the subject even further. So starting off with Camera Raw filter. So first of all, just make sure to convert your image into a smart object if you haven't done so already. You can do that by right clicking and converting into a smart object. Once you've done that, let's go to filter and Camera Raw filter and let's now just enhance this subject. So I'm not going to be overdoing it, I'm simply going to be making some slight adjustments, and that's because this subject as is pretty enhanced and pretty high definition from the get-go. So we don't need to do too much to this subject. So let's increase the exposure to +5. Let's increase some contrast as well. Yeah, we can take this up to +10. Let's also go into effects. Let's increase this texture to +10. We can also increase the clarity. Let's take this up to +5. Let's go into detail and we can increase the sharpening as well to 15 pixels. In my opinion, yeah, that looks pretty good to me. Let's click OK. Yeah, so this is before and this is after. So a slight enhancement to the subject. Now again, bear in mind that this is the first phase. We are now moving on to the second phase, which is the dodging and burning. So let us start with that. So if you watch my videos, you know the drill right now. We are going to create some curves adjustment layers. So click on the adjustment layers and click on curves. Let's now just create a duplicate of this one and let's go ahead and just clip both of these to the subject layer. So you can just hold Alt or Option in between the two layers and then click to create a clipping mask. Let's name the bottom one to highlights, the top one to shadows, like so. Let's now go back to the highlights layer, increase the highlights like so, and just do the opposite for the shadows curves layer. So let's click on the shadows and let's do the inverse of what we've just done, as you can see on screen. Let's now just invert both of these layer masks, so click within the layer mask and press Command or Control I and do the same for both of these curves layers. And now it's just a matter of painting these effects onto the subject where we want them to actually be. So let's start off with the highlights, click within the layer mask, let's press B for the brush tool and increase the size of our brush. Now if we want these effects to be visible on the subject, then we need to have the white color selected, and we also need to be using a soft brush. So let me go ahead and change my hardness all the way down to 0. Perfect. Let's make sure to have the opacity set to 100 and let's also change our flow down to something like 10%. Okay, ready to paint on our subject. And what we want to do now is just simply paint over the highlights on the subject's face just to enhance them even further. So let's start off with this forehead region. Okay, what I will do, because 10% is quite strong, let's take this down to 5%. Much more subtle. I don't think this is going to be much of an issue. Let's go ahead and try again. Yeah, that's much better. Let's just enhance the areas on the subject which are already showing some highlights. So as you can see on the nose, these white areas right here, we can go over the eyes as well just to enhance them even more. Do the same for the other eye. On his skin right here, you can see there are some shadows and highlights. Let's just target these highlights. Yep, looking good. Maybe we can get some of these highlights on the hair itself. Also on the lip, I can see some. On the ears. And so the more time you spend doing this, the better the result will be. So yeah, you guys get the general idea. I'm going to speed this up and just work on it even further. Okay, awesome, looking really good. Now if we just toggle between before and after, as you can see guys, we've really enhanced the subject's look just by adding in some highlights. So as you can see, once again, before and after. And now what we need to do is do the exact same thing but for the shadows. So click within the shadows layer mask, let's press B for the brush tool, and then once again, let's now paint over the shadows on the subject. Okay, so we're done with our shadows. Let's just toggle between before and after adding shadows. As you can see, it adds a nice contrast to the subject. And now let's toggle between the before and after without shadows and highlights, and after a complete transformation to the subject's face. Now at any point, if you feel like the highlights or shadows are too much, you can always just adjust the opacity right here. So for me personally, I think the shadows are a bit too much, so let's take this down to something like 70%. Yep, that looks much better to me. Okay, now it's time to focus on creating the Twitter notification. Now given that we have a lot of space on this left hand side, we want to make sure that the notification is quite large and that the text is readable. So let's keep that in mind when we're creating our notification. So let's start off now by going to the shapes. Let's click on the rectangle tool and let's simply now create a rectangle on screen. Don't worry about the initial size, we can always adjust this afterwards. We are just simply getting a rectangle on the screen. Let's place this underneath the subject like so, and let's also change the color to white as well. Once you have your shape set in the canvas, it's really a matter of just resizing this rectangle until you get the perfect size for your tweet. So what I'm going to do is just play with the sizing of this rectangle, and I'll be right back in just a moment. Okay guys, now I've just gone ahead and adjusted the position of this rectangle. Also, I've added in a gradient to the rectangle just to spice it up ever so slightly and to make it not look so bland. So just double click on the rectangle layer, click on gradient overlay, and I'll provide you with these hex codes. So a very light grey to white gradient. The grey is set to location 0 and the white is set to location 92. Click OK and make sure to follow all the settings you see on screen if you're trying to emulate the same result. I've also rounded the corners of this rectangle, as you can see in the appearance tab right here. I've rounded each and every single corner of this rectangle to 100 pixels. Now a shortcut to adjust all the corners all at once is to simply click on this link. Once you do that, any input value that you type in, as you can see 45 pixels, it now adjusts it for every single corner on this rectangle. But I'm going to undo that because we want to keep this to 100 pixels. Now whether or not you round the corners is really up to you guys. You can do either or, and it's really personal preference in this regard. So choose what you like. You can also adjust your corners a different way. Simply click on this white rectangle, click on the rectangle tool like so, and now the selection box will appear. As you can see, there's some little circles. You can just simply click on one point and drag like so if you prefer to do it that way. But if not, you will have the option to change it in this box right here. So once you create a shape, just check in this appearance tab right here. It should be on your right, and you can adjust the corners as you please. Now I want to add a nice outer glow to this white box, and that's my personal preference, just something to make it slightly more appealing to the eye. So what I'm going to do is just double click on the rectangle, let's go to outer glow, and let's just add this glow which you see on screen. So here are the settings you need to follow. We are using a pure white color, and when you set the blend mode to linear dodge add, it really blends in with the background and creates this sort of light blue glow effect which looks really good in my opinion. So once again, just make sure to copy all the settings you see on screen if you're following along with this tutorial. Moving on, it's now time to create the visual elements which will be placed inside the tweet. So let's start off with the profile picture. Now for this profile picture, I'll be using this same person, but I'll just find a different image of him. Luckily, I managed to find another image of this person on Freepik, the exact same person, and so we're going to use that. So over here in this document, I have an image of the same person, just a different image like I mentioned. Let's go ahead and drag this into our main document like so and just place it at the very top. Now for this profile picture, I want to enclose this person's face within a circle. So how can we do that? Let me show you exactly how. First, what we need is to create a circle. So let's go to the shapes, let's click on ellipse tool, and let's go ahead and just click in the center of the person's face, hold down Alt or Option and Shift and just create the circle and expand it until it fits the shape of the head. Something like this should be fine. Now of course we can't see the face anymore, so let's just quickly change the color to black and let's go ahead and adjust the opacity to something like 50%. The objective here is just to be able to see the face and just align everything within the circle. Okay, yeah, that's perfect. Now we can actually see what we're working with. So now it's just a matter of just adjusting the circle until you have the head centered perfectly. As you can see, the subject is on a bit of an angle. So what we can do is just go ahead and press Command or Control T on the image itself, zoom out slightly. We can actually just rotate this just so that he's in a straight vertical line. Looking much better. Yeah. To something like this. Then just adjust the circle slightly and something like this should be fine. So what we need to do now is create a selection. So what we will do is press Command or Control and click on the ellipse layer. Like so. This is going to bring up a selection of the circle. Once you've done that, now let's go back to our original layer of the subject and go ahead and create a layer mask, like so. And as you can see, we have now enclosed this subject within the circle. What you can do now is simply delete your ellipse. And now as you can see, we have a really nice profile picture. I'm going to name this profile picture just to keep organized, guys. And what we need to do from this stage is we need to right click on our profile picture and convert it into a smart object. That way, if we make a selection, it's only selecting this part as opposed to the whole image, which it would have done before. If I press Command or Control Z to undo, as you can see, if I press Command or Control T right now, you can see that the box for the selection is really large. But when you just turn it into a smart object, when I press Command or Control T, we are only working within the bounds of this circle. And now it's just a matter of scaling down this profile picture just to the size that you want it to be. So what I'll do is press Command or Control T and let's now just decrease the size of this image. So I've scaled my profile picture all the way down to something like this. It looks quite realistic. If you've ever seen a tweet, the profile pictures aren't really that large. Now we can even go ahead and customize our profile picture simply by just selecting it, double click and click on stroke. Here are the settings I'm going to keep. So keep the size to 3, we'll keep the position to inside, and I'll have it set to a light grey. I'll provide you with the hex code for that color. Yeah, that looks really nice. A little border for our profile picture. Now once your profile picture is sorted, it's now time to add in your handle. Now I have just made up a random name, which is Chris Johnson, but in your case, you may want to keep it to the person you're making the thumbnail for, or preferably the person which is going to be making this tweet. For example, if it's Elon Musk, an Elon Musk profile picture and his handle. For Alex Hormozi, there'll be a profile picture of Alex Hormozi with his handle. Common sense, guys. I'm pretty sure I don't need to explain that to you. Now, for those of you who are following along, the font I'm using for this text is Helvetica Bold, and I'll provide you with the hex code for the color of this font. Now, for those of you who are completely new to Photoshop and don't know how to add text, simply press T, go ahead and click on the canvas and type away. I'm all for helping the beginners. Now, this verified symbol you can find easily on Google. Just go ahead and search Twitter verified symbol and you'll find it very easily. Now, adding this symbol just helps to create a little bit more authority, and it's something that most people are familiar with. If you know Twitter, then you've definitely seen this icon. Now it's time to add in the rest of the text. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back in just a moment. Now, as you can see, guys, I've added in my text. I'm using the same font, which is Helvetica Bold, but we've just changed the color and made it slightly darker, a very nice dark gray. I'll provide you with the hex code for that color. Now, of course, with this text, you want it to be readable, so make sure that you scale it to a good size so that people can actually read the contents of the tweet. This is probably the most important part, so just make sure once again that you are scaling the text to the right size. People need to be able to read what's going on. So now what we're going to do is add a highlight to the word this, just to help to emphasize on that word. This is really useful if you're looking to emphasize a certain word, just to place more more importance on it and get people to look at that specific phrase or word. Now I found this highlight PNG on Freepik, but you can even use your own brush and create your own highlight if you want. Furthermore, you can even change the color of this highlight simply by just adding a hue and saturation. I'd keep it to a neon green or yellow. I find that those colors work the best for this style, but again, that's a personal preference thing for you guys. Now just make sure that the highlight layer is placed below the text like so, just so that the text is visible when you place it behind it, as you can see right here. Then it's just a matter of aligning it behind the text. Now again, like I mentioned, you can even create your own custom highlight by using a brush with a certain texture, or you can even just use a regular brush. It's really up to you. And now to add in the final element, which is to add these small icons at the bottom, which show the likes, the shares, the retweets. We are going to add those elements in just to really make this look like an official tweet. Now don't worry guys, there's actually a quick way of doing this without wasting too much time, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So let's hop on to Twitter, or X if you want to call it that, but I like Twitter. So as you can see guys, I'm on Twitter or X right now, and as you can see right here, I'm on Alex Hormozi's page. We have a full bar of all of the icons right here. So instead of me actually going ahead and manually creating them, why don't we just simply make a screenshot of this tab? So what I'll do right now guys is just literally go ahead and make a screenshot of these icons, as you can see right here. Now that's saved onto my PC, and I can simply paste that into our thumbnail. So let's go back into Photoshop and I'll open up this saved screenshot. So here is my saved screenshot. Let's go ahead and drag this into our canvas like so. Click on yes, and now as you can see, we have our icons. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking there's a white background. You need to get rid of that first. That's pretty simple guys. All you need to do is go into the blending modes and click on darken like so. And there you have it guys, the white background is gone. Scale it up ever so slightly by pressing Command or Control T. And now to move on to the final step, which you may have guessed, which is Camera Raw Filter. So let's just highlight the top layer. Let's go ahead and press Command, Option, Shift and E, and that's just going to merge all the layers in the layers section into one layer. Then let's right click, convert into a smart object, and let's now go ahead and select filter and camera raw filter. And now let's just make our final enhancements to the thumbnail. So starting off in the light section, let's just try and increase the exposure ever so slightly, maybe to 0.5, nothing too drastic. Let's also see if we can increase the contrast ever so slightly as well. Yeah, that looks pretty decent. Let's take this up to +12. Let's also just decrease the whites ever so slightly to something like -5, and we can decrease the highlights as well to something like -5. We can do -5 for both. Let's go into effects. Let's increase the texture to +20. Yep, a slight vignette would actually look quite good. Maybe we can take this to -4. Yeah, that's before, that's after. Yep, -4. Let's increase the grain. Let's take this up to +12. And let's now go into detail and increase the sharpening. So I'm going to take this up to +20. Now let's add a slight bit of noise reduction as well, just to smoothen out the skin ever so slightly. Something like 20 will do. So that's before, that's after. Yep, just a bit of smoothness to the skin. Let's circle all the way back up to color. Let's try and adjust the vibrance to +10. Yep, that works. And let's just adjust the saturation ever so slightly. I'm going to keep this to +2. Nothing more than that. Maybe we can also adjust the yellow right here. So let's go into color mixer and adjust these yellows. Yep, to something like this. That looks pretty good to me. And then click OK. And there you have it guys, another Twitter/X style thumbnail. Now this thumbnail in combination with the other variation of this Twitter thumbnail on my channel are really the only two Twitter style thumbnails that you need to learn, and you can now create them moving forward with no issue at all. So I hope you guys found some value in this video. Now if you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe to my channel because I'll be posting a lot more videos just like this one. Thank you very much guys for watching this video, and until next time, peace.